Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Inauguration Day is January 20th, 2025. That will mark the end of a long 4-year war, which has been waged against your inalienable Second Amendment rights. But many of you may think that the minute the president-elect is inaugurated and sworn in, poof, just like that, everything is A-OK again. Well, that's not really the case. I mean, there are some things that he can fix right away, but there are other things that are going to be kind of like turning around an aircraft carrier. So today, let's get you educated on all of that, and let's spend a few minutes and let's talk about what he can and can't do to protect your Second Amendment rights. Okay, before we get going too far down the road we're going down, proud to announce that this video is being brought to us by our good friends at the Sonoran Desert Institute. That's right, launch your career in the firearms industry today. Start arming yourself with education today, and most importantly, start defending the inalienable rights of millions of Americans nationwide, all through our most powerful tool, which of course is education. Listen, they have a degree and or certificate or program for just about anything that you may desire. So for more information, check them out in the description box below or visit them at sdi.edu. Okay, so I have disclosed this in the past that occasionally I go over to the Trace because, well, it can be really humorous, but sometimes you can find an article and if you reverse engineer it, you can use it to your advantage because the people over the Trace actually occasionally put some pretty good information out there. This is one of those examples. They were basically writing an article in panic mode about what Donald Trump could do and could not do, and in many ways it turns out to be a perfect little kind of playlist, or at least a way for us to understand once the 45th president becomes the 47th president, what can he do instantly with the stroke of a pen? What can he do relatively quickly? And what is going to be like turning around an aircraft carrier? Okay, let's just go through some of the items that I know you're all fond of, and let's start with national concealed carry reciprocity, or in some instances, people are talking about national constitutional carry. Now, we've already talked about this bill. House Resolution 9534, Representative Thomas Massie is sponsoring it along with the good folks over at NAGR. The numbers are there to pass this legislation, but the numbers are there ever so slightly. And when you take a look at the bill in its current form and you take a look at the breakdown of both the Senate and the House, the likelihood, and I'm just being realistic here, the likelihood that this is going to pass out of both chambers in its current format, I think, is pretty remote. If a version of this bill could be worked and passed out of both the House and the Senate, there is no doubt in my mind that President Trump would sign it. But if that's something that you think you're going to see in the very near future, candidly, and I'm just trying to kind of give you the correct expectations here, I don't believe that that is something that's going to happen in the near future. But let's talk about some of the things that President Trump can do literally the second he steps into the White House. Number one, he could fire Steve Debach. I believe he will fire Steve Debach. If I was Steve Debach, I'd probably just submit my resignation the night before inauguration. Steve Debach was placed there after, of course, remember David Chipman was first attempted to become the ATF director. But hey, Steve Debach has been the useful idiot for the Biden administration, for Merrick Garland. You take a look at how he's performed with the pistol brace rule, with the rules on frames and receivers, most recently with the zero tolerance policy on the FFLs. It's been an absolute, abject, complete, utter disaster, and he will be fired. Once he has a new AG, that attorney general could move to strike from the CFRs some of the rulemaking orders that were previously admitted under Joe Biden and Merrick Garland's DOJ. So, rules such as what does it mean to be engaged in the business, rules such as the force reset trigger, the pistol brace rule, the 80% lower rule, despite the fact that it's already been argued before the United States Supreme Court. So that one might be a little hard to touch, but there are plenty of rulemaking orders that theoretically the new attorney general, once that is decided who that will be, could withdraw some of those orders. Now, I know a lot of you are really excited about Matt Gaetz, myself included. I think Matt Gaetz would be a very interesting and pretty dynamic attorney general. However, In speaking about national concealed carry reciprocity, I said, well, let's just kind of take a look at the numbers. And this is where you got to get a little realistic about Matt Gaetz, because I recognize that one of the things that many of you love about Matt Gaetz is that he has been the bull in the China store, and he most definitely has done that. Unfortunately, you don't make a lot of friends when you govern that way. And now some of those enemies, I believe, are going to come back and haunt Matt Gaetz, and I think Matt Gaetz is going to have a very, very difficult time actually getting appointed as United States Attorney General. Next, we could just simply abolish the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention, something that was created out of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, something that really didn't do much of anything because Vice President Harris was put in charge of it. And I told you on this video right here, it's probably the best piece of news ever because we knew that nothing was going to happen with it. There were a couple of bills that were kicking around in the House to make that office a permanent office. One of them actually had been sponsored by a Republican. They both stalled out and got nowhere. Its head is on the chopping block. It's the perfect opportunity. And if we're really going to be kind of cleaning out government and trying to make it more efficient, do we really need the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention? So that should go on the chopping block literally minutes after inauguration. Next, once you have the Attorney General figured out, yeah, you're going to need to appoint a new ATF Director. I know there is many people in our community that are pounding the drum for one particular individual who would be a fantastic choice. But realistically speaking, what we simply need is a director of the ATF that's going to start interpreting the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act much differently, or just a director of the ATF that understands what authority they have as the director of the ATF, and that's only the authority that was given to them by Congress. Or we could just get a director of the ATF that could also spend as much time focusing on, I don't know, alcohol, tobacco, and explosives as well. Or we could just get an ATF director that really decides, hey, you know, the purpose of this agency is to go after the criminal elements, and we're going to turn our attention and resources towards the criminal elements and kind of leave the lawful and responsible gun owner alone. Any one of those would be a marked improvement from what we've just been through. Okay, and then if you really want to think outside of the box, and I will recognize right now that this is a bit of a Hail Mary pass, okay? But once the Attorney General situation is ironed out, we have a new Attorney General, could the Attorney General start taking a look at states and start saying, hey, listen, we see state laws out there that are arguably violating, or in many cases clearly violating, the constitutional rights of its citizens. Now, go back to Missouri. You remember Missouri passed the Second Amendment Preservation Act, which basically said that federal gun laws do not matter here, and we're going to basically march to our own drummer. And the Garland DOJ went in and sued the state of Missouri, successfully saying, hey, your law violated federal supremacy. Well, if we all of a sudden have a ruling from the Supreme Court that clearly states that certain platforms of firearms or types of magazines are, in fact, constitutionally protected, could the Attorney General's office actually sue the states to overturn those laws? Now, it would be a unique move, but one that would not be legally impossible. What more likely you're going to see is renewed local efforts to overturn those laws in which the United States Attorney General's office could participate as an amicus party. So the bottom line is no, it's not like the sun is going to rise again on January 20, 2025, and we're not going to have anything to worry about. We will have plenty to worry about. And for those of you who live in states hell-bent on civilian disarmament, I guarantee you that their efforts will ramp up considerably. Are there some things that the president can do upon being sworn in that will immediately change the complexion of this nation? Yes, there are. But many of the other things that we're very hopeful for are still either long shots or they're just going to take a lot more time to happen. Clearly, the appointment of the Attorney General and an ATF Director, though, would significantly change the entire playing field upon which the ATF operates. We would likely see them go back into the garage and perhaps just expend more time and efforts going after the criminal element. Listen, if you guys got any questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington gun law by now. If you don't, that's okay. That information is down there in the description box. If you got an idea for a video we should be doing around here, you click on that link right there. You let us know. If you just want to subscribe to our monthly newsletter, the ability to do all of that is right down there in the description box. And then finally, and most importantly, let's remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.